think all the past 5 years have it's made me stronger because I've had to be, you know. I think it's so important because this is one thing that I don't like to hide, like mental health issues. Someone said to me, "How are you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." But everyone's fine is completely different. But I think it's really important to let people know this is normal. My name is Tanice Elizabeth Samuels. I'm a lawyer in a bank, and that's my 9 to 5. After 9 to 5, I'm a content creator. I'm from Ireland. I was born here. I was born in Belfast, and I've always lived here. I've travelled between countries, like my dad is Jamaican and my mum Irish. So I spent a lot of times, like half and half the year between, but I was born here, and I've always went to school here and worked here.
Do you feel connected to your roots then in Jamaica?
Yeah, 100%. Our family's very close, but my dad passed away 5 years ago, so I haven't actually been back to Jamaica since then. My dad was murdered in Jamaica. It was, very, very sudden, and we were here, and he was only there for 2 weeks. It was very, very up and down because at the beginning, when I first found out I was here and I had to be the one to tell everyone, have phone calls 2 o'clock in the morning and chasing police and trying to deal with what happened. At the beginning, when it happened, my doctor was like, "Right, you need counselling, you need a therapist, you need someone to talk to," and I was like, "Okay, that's great." So I did, and I had 3 or 4 months with a therapist, and it was great. However, I don't think I actually, because I was in it was adrenaline. I hadn't processed anything. Then maybe 2 years later, I was knocked down with really bad depression. I went to the doctors. I was on medication, and then that was fine. And then only last year, I thought I was better. I thought I was okay, that's okay, I'm better. But last year it hit me again, and it was I thought I was over this, but really I hadn't actually touched into anything. So it took 4 years for me to process everything, and for me to then have that time for me to process it, if you know what I mean. A lot of my family have, and everyone's still grieving and stuff, but I think I didn't really do that at the beginning. And since then, it's been a journey of me trying to get back on track, I guess, but without adrenaline taking over.
That's so hard.
It's the journey, man.
You're so strong.
I try to be, I really do, but get upset. I think all the past 5 years have it's made me stronger because I've had to be, I think it's so important because this is one thing that I don't like to hide, mental health issues. Someone said to me, "How are you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." But everyone's fine is completely different. But I think it's really important to let people know this is normal.
So how do you deal with when people ask you, "Where are you from?"
It really frustrates me. Sometimes when people ask, it's "Oh, why have you got brown skin?" That is what they're asking. It's not, "Where are you from?" "I'm from here. I'm from Belfast. I live here." "Where are you from?" And then they're "Here too." Because it's a silly question. It depends on what mood I'm in, because sometimes it's time for education. So it's I'll say, "Where are you from?" That's just a weird question to ask someone. What is it you actually want to know? And it's okay to ask those questions, but not in a backhanded way. You know, if you want to know my cultural heritage, ask and I'll tell you. So, but sometimes it gets too much.
And how did you navigate like being a mum so young as well? And doing law, I presume, at the same time, and...
That was another example of my adrenaline, just like fight or flight. I found out that I was pregnant with Logan when I was the summer before I went to upper sixth. I just turned 18. See, at the time, I was like, I'm like an adult. But see, as soon as I got pregnant, I was like, I'm not an adult. Like, where's my mum? I did my A-levels, and a lot of teachers at the time were like, okay, so when are you leaving? Like, and I was like, I'm not leaving. And it got to the point, like, I was going for meetings and they were like talking about insurance and all, and I was like, I'm here, I'm pregnant, but I'm an adult and I'm here and I'm in school. You can't like ask me to leave. My leavers ceremony was on the Friday in like May or something. Yeah, it was Friday in May, so I couldn't go because I was being induced on the Friday, and they induced me early because I was doing A-levels like 2 weeks later. But what ended up happening is I sat my first exam in hospital. The first exam must have been on the Monday. They induced me, but it took a few days, and like I was nowhere. I was just like sitting in hospital over the weekend in this ward. So I was the youngest in the ward, and all these women, and I had all my books over my bed, and the nurses were like coming in like, you need to put away your books, and I was like, I need to study, I've got an exam in a few days. And they were just like, this is mad. I had Logan on the Saturday, and on the Monday sat my first exam, and an adjudicator just came in and sat, and the nurse just looked after Logan, so she just sat in the corner and did my exam. And then on the Tuesday I had my next exam, so I came home. I wasn't like breastfeeding or anything. My mum like helped massively. Me and Logan grew up together, so I was 18 and I had him, and like I was single nearly straight after, so it was like my mum and dad were in Jamaica. They were in Jamaica when I found out. Like my mum came home just because of that, but my dad stayed there. And then she went back out because they were working, like she had to. So me and Logan were here on our own for years, and before I met JP, you know, when I did uni, and like we just did it. I remember like so I had him in the May, and then I started uni in the September. And I was like, okay, so what do you do? And there was like this childcare on site. So he was only like 4 months old, 5 months. And I like brought him in as a wee carrier. And there was times I went to class and he was sitting in his chair because our law lectures or seminars were on at like 7, 8 o'clock at night. So there was no childcare at the time. So he was just sitting there, and like people were like, she's got a kid. I'm like, yeah. And what? I need to be in this class. When I look back at it now, like, there's no way. I don't know how I did it.
It's so incredible though, like even though it's like your intense coping mechanism to get through really hard things, but like you're so driven to actually go against all the odds and make it happen. And like I know when we release this story, there's going to be so many people that are just inspired by pushing through. Like you've survived so much, and still surviving, and it's an ongoing process. But you have like, I just think it's so beautiful that you have your own family and like your own unit, and you fought so hard for it to be together to what it is. How do you balance law in the morning and then your content creation? How did you get into content creation?
I turned 30 a year and a half ago, and this is when I felt I was like really depressed. So I had a terrible Christmas. Not a terrible Christmas, I had a lovely Christmas with my family, but I knew that I wasn't well. I wasn't feeling myself. I was off work sick for like 3 months. During that, I was like, you know, talking to my friends, my husband, and he was just like, one day we went for coffee and he was working, but I was just like, I need to like go for a walk. So he met me in town and we went for coffee, and he was just like, Tanice, like, why don't you just set up an Instagram? Because I was doing it anyway on my own. I was like, no, people are going to think I love myself and like all this. And so that day he was just like, just start documenting for yourself. Like it was more of like, for me, documenting, having something else to put my mind on and like enjoy, because I enjoyed it anyway. You know, I was doing it anyway, I just wasn't showing it. I started doing that, and then a few months later, brands started reaching out to me, and I was like, so I started in the February, and in the June, I think I did my first paid partnership. June, July. That was June, July last year. Even though I have in my head where I want to be, right? Because like you see all these people and like, oh, I would love a life like that. But it's really, really important to like keep bringing it back and just be like, what can I achieve? To be honest, you could probably achieve the world. Like now, I would never have thought this time last year that I'd be working with the brands that I'm working with. It just shows you what can happen in a few months. I've learned that not about myself, but about my position. I do always feel like hard work comes into it, but luck always comes into it as well. I'm privileged for a number of reasons. First off, I went to school, went to university, work in a really stable job. If I didn't have the job that I had last year, I wouldn't have been able to take 3 months off sick. I wouldn't have been able to find myself. I wouldn't have been able to still go for coffees. I wouldn't also have an access to therapy. I feel like I'm really privileged for that compared to the struggles that people have to go through here to get someone to talk to and to get to the point where they are willing to ask for help, whereas I can just get it. The second part of the privilege is that I have light brown skin and I am mixed race. I notice, and it really annoys me and I call it out constantly, brands, people, magazines will come to me to be in campaigns and I will be the black face and I'm not the black face. So this is what I say, I'm like, okay, so who else is going to be in it? And they're like, this such and such, such and such, I'm like, so where's the black woman? And they're like, like you're the, I'm like, no, I'm the mixed race woman, I've got lighter skin, and I do it. Brands must get me, like, they're like, email coming from Tanice. But I think I'm very privileged and I know it, and what I've learned in the last year is that I want to use it in a way that I don't know yet.